to show you Toronto. I want you to know Toronto. Our city welcomes you. There's so much here to do, and you'll soon be so in love with Toronto. You'll see Chinatown and Harbourfront and Old Fort York. We're taking Pape and Danforth's busy scenes. We can sail the lake and stroll the beaches.
Dear viewers and listeners, wherever you are, welcome to this new episode of your first English language live program on Arabs FM in Canada and the United States. Your new program, Spectra. How would you feel if you had to live between two worlds on a daily basis? Two distant worlds, two contradicting worlds. Sounds hard, right? I think so. Well, believe it or not, this is the life that millions of second-generation immigrants have to live every single day. They are torn, and they find themselves in double jeopardy between the nature and the culture of the house versus the culture of society. It creates a big trauma for the kids, and it's a great dilemma. But what is the way out of this ordeal? And is there a way out? To know more about this topic, I'm really delighted to be accompanied today by Karim Bandali, who is a school principal and a senior mentor to many. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. And to start off, how about your own experience as a child?
Mm-hmm.
Can you start off telling us about your own experience as a child and as an immigrant?
Well, I have to say that I think my whole life I have been an immigrant since I was born, and even before I was born with my family. So I am originally from India, from the province of Kutch, which is a little part near Gujarat. And my great-grandfather migrated from India to East Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And so he settled down there. And then so he was an immigrant going to Africa, East Africa.
Which part of East Africa exactly?
It's Tanzania.
Tanzania, okay.
Yeah. And this is where my parents were born. So we're talking about my grandparents on my mom's side and on my dad's side. And so my parents met in Africa.
Okay.
And I have to say that they kept their culture when they were in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, my parents, they grew up there, and then they got married in East Africa. And after that, my dad and my mom, they migrated to Central Africa, to Congo.
Okay.
So another immigration.
So the Democratic Republic of Congo?
That's right.
Yes,
exactly.
okay. Yeah.
With because there is two, so Kinshasa.
Exactly. Yeah.
And this is where we are 6 siblings altogether, and I'm the baby, the number 6, and I was born there. My other siblings were born in East Africa, but when they all moved to Congo, this is where I was born.
Yeah.
And as you know, that Congo is an ex-Belgium colony.
Exactly, yeah.
Right? And so in the beginning, I was living with my parents, and the big questions that my parents had is, okay, what do we do for the education of our children?
Mm-hmm.
And I can relate with what's happening here in schools, is that most often parents, they sometimes move to give a better education to their children.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what my parents were thinking.
Okay.
So all my siblings, they sent them to Belgium to study. They were with Belgian families, and they were in boarding schools. Now, this cost a lot of money. So parents were working very, very hard to send their children. But I was the baby. So I was still with my parents when all my siblings were not
Belgium.
there. They were in Belgium, and I
Okay.
was in Africa.
Uh-huh.
And reached a point where I was approximately 7 years old when my parents decided that, you know, we need to give Kareem another education, a better education, and they sent me to Belgium.
Okay, so to accompany your other siblings.
Yeah.
Wow, that's quite a stretch, really. Like we started off from India, pathing through to Tanzania, then to Congo, and then to Belgium.
That's right.
Actually, there are several places where I'd like to stop through your very, very rich journey, actually, multicultural journey. You said when your parents settled in Tanzania,
Yeah.
They were able to sustain and maintain their culture.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate a little bit, like exactly what do you mean by maintaining or keeping their culture?
So when they were in East Africa, they had the whole community was there. So they were practicing their faith. They had activities within
Okay.
the culture. So it was a community living in Africa, working with the people of Africa, but still maintaining that little group of people having the same values, the same faith and culture. So when I say maintaining, it's because at that time, the culture was that arranged marriage.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Right? So it's not that my mom and my dad, they fell in love, right? It was an arranged marriage.
Okay.
Right?
understand,
And that
yeah.
was part of the culture in India, but they brought it in Africa. And so this is how it happened. That's one example. But it's really to keep and live within the community.
You know, I think a lot of our listeners and viewers now felt a bell ring when you talked about them living with the community. And because that's a very typical kind of practice for new immigrants to encapsulate themselves.
That's right.
And live in a silo or like their self-made ghetto.
That's right.
So it's not enforced on them, but it's their own choice to live in that ghetto.
Exactly.
Would you say our parents were living in a silo? Like, were they totally secluded, like trying to isolate themselves or distance themselves from others?
They were in contact with the Tanzanian because most of the Gujarati people and from Kutch are trade. They were
like merchants or
merchant. That's right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So they had stores, and so they were in contact. Their clients were the native. Right?
Okay. Okay.
So they were in contact, but
on the professional level.
On the professional level, right?
Okay.
But once the day is over and they go to their place of worship,
okay,
it's now us, right? And so it was quite limited to the community, and
So that's a very typical, actually, example of the lives of many immigrants here in Canada and in the United States too. So when it comes to work, I'll go and work with people and deal with them and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, no, I go to my place of worship, I go to my house, I live with my community. I practice my, like my customs and traditions
Exactly.
perfectly. What was the impact of this isolation from the others on you as a child or your siblings?
Well, I can only talk when we were in Congo,
Okay.
right? For me personally, from the day I was born until I was 7,
Mhm.
I was in a Belgian school,
Okay.
right?
Mhm.
So my parents, and they had to pay for it.
Okay.
So I was in a school with the Belgian community,
Mhm.
right?
Was it a boarding school or is
No,
it a regular
no.
school?
Regular
okay.
school in Congo,
Mhm.
right? But it's a Belgium school
Okay.
because as Congo was an ex-Belgium colony,
Mhm.
there were a lot of Belgian people
Okay.
living there.
Mhm.
So I was allowed to go to this school. We had some kids from the natives
Mhm.
that could attend, but it was not free,
Okay.
right?
So it was a
it's
private paid school.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but there were other schools
Mhm.
that are public schools,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
But yeah, so I was going there. So that's a way of also, secluding me
Mhm.
from, the whole community there.
But again, like, would you say that you were raised in a Belgian atmosphere at home, or was it more like an Indian one? Was it more an African one? Like, which culture did your parents adopt, you'd say, at home?
It was the Indian culture.
Indian culture.
Yeah. So as a child, I lived 3 cultures at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
At home, it was Indian. Outside, because I was playing with the neighbors' kids, and they were Congolese.
Okay.
And then at school, I had my Belgian friends, and that's why the richness that I got from that the 3
Diversity,
cultures, the
yeah.
diversity, is that at age 3, I was speaking Lingala, which is the language of Congo,
Mhm.
Kachi that we speak at home,
Okay.
and French at school.
Mhm.
So my parents never stopped me from learning all these languages, because I think culture starts also with languages.
Absolutely. So your parents allowed you to learn the 3 languages freely. They never stopped in your way. They were never an impediment in your way.
No.
But again, just like you said, language is part and parcel of culture. You cannot separate language from culture.
No.
So as you learned the 3 languages, definitely you absorbed, you imbibed, really, you got immersed into the 3 different cultures. What happened if there was a contradiction? And definitely there were.
Mhm.
If there were contradictions between what you were told at home is like virtuous or right, and if people in the 2 other cultures told you otherwise, how would you deal with this paradox?
I think I'm sure there were some conflicts, but the key was communication.
Mm-hmm.
Communication between parents and kids.
Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because even my parents, they were speaking the 3 languages, but French, they were not really, because they were not living, they were not going in school, like they were not in contact with the Belgian community.
Mm-hmm. But did they exert the effort to learn the language? Like, did they just catch it?
Yeah.
Or like they like they forced themselves to learn it?
Yeah, they did. They did, because even the Congolese were speaking also French because of the influence of the colony.
Okay.
Right? So French was always there, but they were not as fluent in French.
But they
at
can
that
get
time.
along. They can get along in French.
Yeah.
But my question is, like, did they go to like a language school to
No.
So they just learned it from
living.
Living. Okay.
Yeah. Because their lives was, we are working to make money to pay the education for our children, 6 of them,
Okay.
right? And that was what they were doing. They had their organization to make sure that, you know, my dad was working in the morning, my mom was coming later at the store, then in the afternoon, you know, everything closes because everybody's sleeping. Then my mom opens in the afternoon because my dad needs to sleep. You know, they had their own way of, you know, functioning to make it happen. And yeah, so it was by living.
But you said you always had dialogue. There is always dialogue. There is always conversation.
Yeah.
But can't you remember any time when there was sort of a gridlock, like there is no way out, where they said like black and you said white? And was there any instance like that?
I would say later on.
Later on. So not at this stage.
Not at this stage.
Okay.
I was a kid, right? Not at this age. It was more when at 7 when I went to Belgium, right? And very strange thing is that when I went to Belgium, I was living with a Belgian family when I was 7. And that whole year, when I came back during the summertime and holidays to see my parents, you know, like in French, there is, you know, in English we say you to anybody, but in French, if we have respect,
there's like what we call like the royal you.
The royal you, and you know, and the common you.
Exactly.
So before I left, it was the common you with my parents. When I came back, it was the royal you.
Okay.
So a switch happened unconsciously in me that when I came, I didn't realize that, but my mom noticed that now I was like talking differently.
Okay.
So my thing is that there are things that happens in our lives, and then we are kids, and as parents, we think that everything is fine, but things are happening inside.
Okay, so going to Belgium, you said you were in a boarding school, right? And
Belgian family, then
a boarding school.
Yeah.
So in both scenarios, actually, you were completely surrounded by Belgian culture.
Yeah.
You did not have any time to, you know, like practice your own like cultural background and so on.
Very limited. I mean, limited.
Very limited.
Yeah.
So how did this help you? Do you think this was a great booster for you to integrate and assimilate and get along with the Belgians? Or was there any like negative side to that?
No, it helped me to really, you know, be included, and I saw myself not as a stranger, but I saw myself like a Belgian guy.
Okay.
But the thing is, this is where the society plays a role. In Belgium, at that time, at least, coming from India has a very nice image.
Oh, okay.
Because people, they see exotic, they see the Maharajas, and they see, you know, they see all this. So there is a curiosity in, wow, because there were not many Indians.
So they think you're living a life of extravagance and like, you know, like, like Maharajas.
So, oh my God, you're from India. Like in Belgium, there were not that many people coming from India.
Okay.
Which will be a different thing if you were from Congo.
Yeah, which is something they're always in contact with.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're not.
Exactly. Or from Morocco, or because there's a lot of people from Morocco.
So you raised their curiosity. Like,
yeah. So they wanted to talk to me. They wanted to ask me questions. Right. So it's a balance. I think that when me being there, I wanted to learn to fit in.
But you said you defined yourself as an Indian. You never defined yourself as a excuse me, as a Tanzanian or Congolese ever?
No,
Although
yeah,
your parents lived there,
yeah,
you lived there for a while,
yeah,
but you always defined yourself
as an Indian.
as an Indian.
Yeah, yeah.
Was it because, like, did your parents acquire Congolese or Tanzanian citizenship?
They had the Tanzanian citizenship and Congolese
Mm-hmm.
citizenship, but not me. It's
Okay.
very strange because I was an alien.
You're like a legal alien.
Illegal alien, yeah.
So
Yeah.
they had the citizenship.
They, if I remember, I think they were not Congolese, but they were aliens also.
But they were Tanzanian. They had the Tanzanian citizenship.
But I think that I'm not clear. I don't remember exactly, but I think that when they were in Tanzania, they had the passport of British protected.
Okay, which was the case for Tanzania.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And then when they came to Congo, I think they were aliens, and that's why I was an alien too.
Okay.
And then when I went to Belgium, I was an alien, and then I became, I had my Belgian nationality at one point in Belgium. Because, see, my parents, after they moved to Belgium, in the 70s, there were, political situations in Congo.
Okay.
And they left, and they came to Belgium.
But stopping at this point here, do you think the fact that they were not granted or the citizenship of neither Tanzania or, like, specifically Congo, where you grew up, did this play a factor in them not fully assimilating or considering themselves at home?
No, because you know what? Until they passed away, both of them, Congo was always in their heart.
Okay.
Always, because they never lived in India.
Mm-hmm.
They went as a tourist. They were born in Africa.
Okay.
It's just that from Africa, from East Africa, they went to Central Africa, but it was still Africa.
Okay.
So in their heart, they just knew Africa.
Which is, again, very interesting. So why did they keep the Indian culture inside them? Although they cherished the time they spent in Africa, it was so close to them and so on. But why was there, like, was it a matter of, like, pride? Was it a matter of identity? Like, what was the motivator, you think, like, that
I think
made them?
I think it's the culture that's passed on.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that through, your faith practices, your food.
Okay.
And although even our food, the Indian food, has a taste of African in there.
Okay.
So there is an influence. And they were really, like, for them, being in Congo, it was their country.
Okay.
Their country, even though they had in their heart, they see themselves as Indian because they were part of a community. It's a link also of the ancestors, right?
Okay.
It's passed on. It's passed on. But then your environment has an influence on you. And I think that you can decide to take whatever is empowering you, whatever is adding value to your life, wherever you are. Right? So they took the music of Africa. They took the food of Africa.
Okay.
Right? It blended with their culture.
Blended, actually, yeah. Like, with this word, let's go for a short musical stop. But before we do so, we will definitely, after the break, need to really emphasize this word blended, because it's a real magical word. Everybody keep tuned in. Don't go anywhere.
I want to show you Toronto. I want you to know Toronto. Our city welcomes you. There's so much here to do, and you'll soon be so in love with Toronto. You'll see Chinatown and Harbourfront and Old Fort York. We're taking Cape and Danforth's busy scenes. We can sail the lake and stroll the beaches boardwalk, or bike the Don Valley's beautiful ravines. We'll go shopping at the old St. Lawrence Market and picnic with our family in Hyde Park. We can catch a scenic ferry to the island and watch the CN Tower light up after dark. So I want to show you Toronto. I want you to know Toronto. Our city welcomes you. There's so much here to do, and you'll soon be so in love with Toronto. We can rendezvous inside the Eaton Centre, or walk to King Street to book a theatre tour. We'll ride streetcars along Queen Street to Spadina, or take the subway to Yonge Street and Bloor. We can hang out in the small cafes in Yorkville, or at the CNE's Royal Winter Fair. We'll enjoy Nuit Blanche and Pride and Carabana, or the crowds down at Nathan Phillips Square. Once we were the town of York, and once we fought a war. Then we became a city back in 1834. Built on Lake Ontario, we've changed and we have grown, and people from around the world now call our city home.
And fall in love with Toronto, fall in love with the city, falling in love with your new adoptive country, be it Canada, be it the USA, be it Belgium, like in your case here. And you said that your parents blended in. So, and this is a very important thing, because many people have the misconception that if I would adopt anything from my new country, this means that I'm betraying my culture, I'm betraying my faith, I'm betraying my identity. So your parents were able to overcome this hurdle. They surpassed that, actually.
Yeah, totally. And even myself, being in Belgium, and then after that, I came to Canada.
Okay.
Right? So in Belgium, I was there from my 7 years old. And then I moved to Canada in, it has been now 25 years.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And this is where I had my kids. So we had to blend. I had to blend in Africa when I was a little kid. I had to blend in Belgium and even here. And blending for me, it's not that you blend and you become the same colors and everybody, and nobody can see you who you are, right? Blending for me is really, it's stay who you are, stay who you are in your core, and adopt, as I was saying earlier, the aspects of the new place where you are that are going to serve you.
Exactly. No, like the name of the program is Spectra, and we talk about the spectrum, the wide spectrum. So just like the rainbow.
Yeah.
So the blue is the blue, the indigo is the indigo, the yellow is the yellow.
Yeah.
But they're all together the rainbow.
That's right.
So they don't act separately, yet each one sustains their own identity, but they work together to create this beauty of the rainbow.
Yeah, definitely. And I have to say that one of the way that I can express my like the fact that I have assimilated without forgetting myself, all these different cultures through my life, is that in the job that I do right now as a school principal, I can relate to so many different people.
Absolutely.
Because I know certain aspects of their culture. If I have families coming from Africa, I can relate completely. And they can feel that I can relate with them. When I meet European families, I can relate because I'm from Belgium.
Okay.
Right? I can relate with Indian families.
Because you have a part of every part of the world almost. And before we go deeper into this, and this is something we'll really need to examine very closely, like your work as a school principal with second generation kids. But you know, in Belgium, like you were there, you were able to blend in and so on with the culture, the mainstream culture over there. But you know, a lot of people as well have this idea that it's always easy for children to do it, but not for adults. Many people believe that children have this tabula rasa, this like empty plate that they have in their head, so you can write anything on this board easily. But adults, their board or their plate is full. But again, like the very interesting thing you said is that you said your parents, even as adults, were able to assimilate. So how correct or incorrect from your own experience, from your own point of view, is this idea of a tabula rasa, or like, you know, it's only for children, adults can't make it?
No. I think that's my belief, that we all have everything in us. Children, adults, elderly, everybody. And we are all human beings with our experiences that we are conscious or unconscious.
Okay.
And I'll give you an example for me, is that when from my adult age until age 30, anything I was starting in my life, I was failing. I was not successful in anything I was, starting. And I said, why? Like, I think I'm smart. Why is anybody else is successful and not me? So I decided to go and see a psychologist just to find out why am I not successful? And well, it's very strange what I discovered. I discovered that the fact that my parents had sent me to Belgium when I was 7 years old, my little one of 7 years old took it unconsciously as a feeling of abandonment.
Oh, okay.
Right? So for them, I'm still a 7-year-old. It's okay, but I have things in me I didn't know. So to say that a child is empty and we can just, it's not true. It's the 7 years.
So it was like a trauma. It was like a shock for you.
Exactly.
You felt that they abandoned you.
They abandoned me.
They have forsaken you.
Exactly. Why did they just, send me away? It's because they didn't want me.
Okay.
That I went to talk to my mom, and I said to her, I said, why did you do that? And she explained to me that every night since I was gone, she was crying every night. And that's a sacrifice that she made. And this is when I understood that she was suffering too. And I'm telling you, this is when my success started.
So when you understood that it was not abandonment, it
That's
was
right.
a sacrifice.
A
actually.
sacrifice.
Actually, so
Yeah, exactly.
it was the exact opposite of what you thought.
And I think that when we come in a new country with kids, it's very important, the communication. I
Mhm.
didn't know that, right? Because a parent, for them, it was, well, you know what? It's for your education. We are sending you there.
Mhm.
That's it. But there is more. There is a communication, so there is an understanding between a child and adults.
So why didn't this question arise earlier? Like you said, you just had it in, you subconsciously had this in you, and you took it through the years. Like, were you sort of afraid to bring it up? Were you embarrassed, like shy? What made it stay inside you? You kept it deep in your heart for such a long time, and it affected your career. It affected your success. Why did you keep it for so long?
I guess it's layers of things that, you know, you just, I don't know, it was so unconscious
Mhm.
that I didn't know that it exists.
And so you feel that it would have been really, do you think it was the duty of your parents to, you know, like take the initiative, and
Yeah.
they shouldn't have waited for you to, you know, wonder?
Yeah.
They should have explained that to you.
Yeah. And they didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know that I had that. And I'm sure that all my siblings, they must have lived something, but, you know, we are all different.
Okay.
Right. And yeah, so I think it's very important when you were mentioning earlier that when we come in a new country, and that you were saying that it's easier for kids than for adults. It's easier for them to blend in.
Okay.
Because they are surrounded, they go to school, they are surrounded with so many people, so many other kids with different cultures, and also the main culture.
Mm-hmm.
But the struggle comes when parents are not on the same wavelength.
Okay. Okay.
Right? So they have their beliefs that if themselves they haven't learned the you know the culture of the new country, and they haven't decided to, you know what, I'm going to pick that one because this will be good for my family. I'm not going to take that particular thing because that's going to harm me, because
Mhm.
every family is different.
So I think it's very important that parents should always have this dialogue with their children.
Yeah.
And never take a decision without explaining.
Yeah.
You know, like, yes, my child, I'm aware of the consequences of this decision, but I'm taking this for your advantage, and have them have an open discussion with the parents.
Yeah.
And so, of course, this was, you know, like a major thing in your life, just because one decision was not explained.
It has an impact, and it was a huge impact.
It has a huge impact, and actually, an impact that should, like, it was exactly the opposite of the intention.
Yeah.
The intent
Definitely.
of sending you there
Yeah.
was to make your life better.
Better. Yeah.
And they were not enjoying it; they were suffering,
Mhm.
but they were curbing their feelings.
Yeah.
Because they knew that their son is becoming a better person.
That's right.
So, you know, of course, this all this story that you said really rings a bell with many lives of many immigrants here. Before we go directly to the school and so on, but you today, how would you imagine yourself if you just if you're just 100% Belgian? What would you lose? Like, you know, you said you have layers over layers over layers, and this gives you a lot of depth, okay, in your personality. You have this very profound, you know, structure of personality. And so what if you didn't have Tanzania, India, Congo, you're just plainly Belgian? What would you lose? How would the other Korean be like?
Well, he would be bland. No, sorry.
Okay.
No, I think that there is so much richness in diversity, right? So
Absolutely.
it's, you can't, we are in a world where, you know, communication now, it's so like, you know, in an hour, in 2 hours, 3 hours, you are in different countries, you meet people. In Canada, there's so many people from different countries. I mean, it's a richness. And I think that if I was just Belgium and I stayed Belgium,
Okay.
and I'm not saying that people that are just Belgium are not good, okay? But I think there is a depth and a richness from learning from different people. Already the same thing is that you can learn from the same people of your culture if you learn from each individual.
So you think like learning a new culture gives an extra dimension?
Oh yeah,
to your
definitely.
personality.
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then just to come back to the children.
Yeah.
You know, in school, we teach students to be themselves. We teach them competencies, critical thinking, communicating, right? So we don't think that as students, like the way when I was in school, it's like the way you were saying, it was, I'm a vase and the teacher is giving me knowledge, and it's, you know,
You're just a vessel.
a vessel.
And,
Exactly.
and like, you know, you're
Exactly.
being
It's no more
spoon-fed
like that.
stuff
It's
that
no
you have
more.
to take.
It's no more like that.
Okay. Let's take a short commercial break. But before we take that break, I want you to think about this. Like, you know, how would you identify a child that's suffering from trauma or suffering from this contradiction between home and society? Let's go on the commercial break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back.
هل تريد بيع، شراء أو استئجار عقار سكني أو تجاري؟ هل تبحث عن خدمات عقارية في تورونتو، ميسيساغا أو أي من المدن القريبة؟ والآن وكيلة العقارات سهير البشير تقدم لكم خدماتها المميزة مع مصداقية مشهودة في التعامل. كل ما عليك فعله هو الاتصال على الرقم 647-993-1967 أو عبر موقعنا على الإنترنت suhairalbashir.ca. سهير البشير لخدماتك العقارية.
من كل البلدان ومن كل اللهجات العربية جمعنا لكم الأغاني حتى يكون راديو عربز اف ام، صوت لكل الجالية العربية في أمريكا وكندا. خليكم معنا سوا على الهوا.
صوت العرب الحب يناديكم من أمريكا وكندا يجيكم. صوت العرب Arabs FM.
You're listening to Arabs FM, radio of the Arabs in the US and Canada. Live 24/7 at our website, arabsfm.com.
Arabs FM.
مجوهرات حواء إيفز فاين جولري، بيع وشراء وتصليح كافة أنواع الحلي والمجوهرات. أسعار تنافسية مغرية، بيع بالتقسيط المريح. مجوهرات حواء 32824 راين رود، وارن، ميشيغان 586-883-6528. مجوهرات حواء.
كثيرون يقولون لا مستحيل في الحياة، ووكيل الرهن العقاري أحمد جاد الله يثبت أنه لا مستحيل أمام أي شخص للحصول على المال اللازم لشراء منزل الأحلام. اتصل الآن 416-55-808-77. الرقم مجددا 416-55-808-77. مع وكيل الرهن العقاري أحمد جاد الله، حلمك بامتلاك منزل أصبح حقيقة.
Our dear viewers, welcome back after the commercial break. And we're still here with the very live human cultural treasure that we have with us today, very multicultural indeed. And I'd just like to share some of the comments of our viewers. And our viewer, Suhair al-Bashir, says, in my opinion, I don't think for the second generation of immigrants, there is a contradiction dealing with their parents' values on one hand, and the society which they were born and or raised in on the other hand, for the reason they are able to assimilate in the society, holding values they learned from home in a way that it becomes their lifestyle and new value that is unique, and which I think it gives them a strength and advantage. Thank you very much, Suhair, and it's something we will be tackling actually in the coming minutes right away. The other viewer, again, Sana Oscar, who follows us on both programs, she's saying, very motivational conversation, big like, thank you, Sana. So we're trying to, like, you know, what are the symptoms? What are the things you would look for to identify a child who's suffering from this trauma, from this contradiction between home and society? What things would you see in school?
Well, often what happens is that we see a child that's having sometimes not good marks or bad behaviors.
Okay.
And when we talk to parents, often parents will say, he's not like that at home. He doesn't use that kind of language. He doesn't do this, he doesn't do that. We don't understand. And I think, and when I speak with parents, and I tell them, I said, you know, it's for a lot of parents, immigrant, staying in your culture, only in your culture, it's your comfort zone.
Okay.
Right? So, but your child, he is in the comfort zone at home, but when he's outside, he's no more in a comfort zone.
Okay.
So he has to create that comfort zone for him outside the comfort zone that's done at home. And parents, they have to go outside their comfort zone and, as I was saying, communicate with their child and try to understand what is he living outside. So then they can work together.
Okay.
Outside, and to do that, parents have to go outside their comfort zone.
And what if they don't, and the child grows up this way? What kind of an adult can we expect? Can we expect a successful, new Canadian, new American, or something else?
Well, that depends on the values that have been taught at home and how they've been taught at home.
Okay.
So like any child, even not immigrant, a child will go through is trying to, you know, find himself. So, you know, there's some rough patches for all of us when we were growing.
Going from phase to phase.
Phase to phase, yeah. But when we have that discrepancy between what's at home and what's outside, and there is no communication between parents and child, then it can lead to, and I've heard that. I have seen students, adolescents, that portray themselves in front of their parents in a certain way, and parents think that everything is fine.
So they put the mask on.
The mask on, yeah.
Okay.
But when they are with their friends, I'm telling you, it's something else.
The mask is off.
Yeah.
And the real self
Yeah.
comes out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And not always the nice way, because it's also can be a react. They cannot, maybe they cannot express, there's no dialogue, so they cannot express themselves. So they're gonna go overboard.
Okay.
And I think that if there is that if they work together, parents and children, the patches, the different phases will be much better at the end. And I have to say, if I share my own stories with my two kids that are now in their 20s, there are values at home, and I always had an open communication with my kids.
Okay, so there's always this dialogue. You like, you know, it wasn't only one direction. It wasn't my way or highway.
That's right.
But one of the major obstacles many people can argue is religious beliefs.
Yeah.
So because like it is ordained by God, according to someone's belief, that I should refrain from eating this or drinking that or doing this or like, you know, staying late or wearing this kind of dress and so on and so forth. And some people would argue that those people are not that religious and are not that observant of, you know, like the rituals and so on. They have a much easier time to mix and mingle with the society. How correct or incorrect is this idea?
I think it's it depends on how it is explained and how it is understood by the student.
Okay.
Or by the child.
Yeah.
Because I have seen students from different culture, can be, you know, Sikh or Muslim, or, you know, it's they would, you know, be the way their family wants them to be, and they are very proud.
Okay.
And it doesn't matter that, and they are included. Like, I know that my kids have friends with Muslim girls that are wearing the hijab,
veil,
and the veil, and it's okay, and they are very comfortable with that. And some are not. So I think it boils down to your own how true you are to yourself, and that you're comfortable in your skin.
Okay, so you'd argue that the main denominator between all those people who feel comfortable is dialogue, is continuous dialogue on daily basis. Whenever we take a decision, we take it together.
That's right.
So there's no dictatorship. So we're not living in a patriarchic society.
Exactly.
Where like the father would, or like, you know, ordain something, he'd place a verdict, and it must be followed, must be carried out by hook or by crook. There's no way of arguing. But if there is communication, even if you're a person who is really proud of your cultural background and so on and so forth, you want to implant that in your children, keep your religious faith and so on. But as long as there is dialogue, they're comfortable. And again, but shouldn't there be some kind of resilience as well? So you shouldn't be so stiff with your children and saying like you can never absorb or practice anything like that. So some parents, for example, like, which is coming, like, really it's around the corner, it's Halloween, for instance. Many parents would say, no, I will not allow you to go trick-or-treating.
Yeah.
I'll not allow you to wear like a mask or these things because they're against our belief system.
Yeah.
So shouldn't the parents have some kind of resilience as well, as long as the basics are, are kept?
Yeah. Well, again, I would come with it's a partnership.
Mm-hmm.
It's a partnership between the child and the parents. So the child should be able to say how he or she feels, and there is a discussion between them too.
Okay.
To come to a compromise.
A compromise. Okay.
Right?
So
that's
yeah.
And it should be at a certain point a win-win for both sides.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
So
and whatever it's the results.
Absolutely.
Right? But it has to be a win-win where, okay, you know what? I'm giving you that much, you're giving me that much, and okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll see what happens after. But I think that if there is that communication and working as partners, I'm convinced, and I mean, I see that with my children, the future, they will be people that are themselves happy, and they will maybe keep the faith, or they will have their own version of the faith.
Okay.
Right? It depends. Like that we are, but I think it's a very.
So even when explaining something as critical as the faith again, you should use logic and you should use dialogue, and you shouldn't oppress them. You should, let them express themselves, because if they do not ask you, they'll ask other people.
Exactly.
If you don't meet them with open arms, others will.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
And they will lie.
Yes.
They will lie, and they will do,
they'll become hypocrites.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and that's not
double-faced.
Yeah, and that's not what we want from our children.
Absolutely.
That's not what we want to teach them.
That's not a kind of a healthy generation we want in the future.
Yeah.
And it was a very, very fruitful dialogue. I really can't thank you enough on behalf of our viewers. I think it was really, really enriching, and really we've learned a lot. But to recap, I was really touched by when you said it should be a win-win situation. So it's not a zero-sum game. It's not my win is your loss and the other way around. There should always be a middle ground. There should always be a dialogue. There is no contradiction between, abiding by your beliefs, by your faith, keeping your creed, and at the same time assimilating and assembling, becoming a good citizen.
Yeah.
And is there any final advice you'd like to give to any of the parents that are watching us now or listening to us?
It's work with your kids for everything.
And respect them.
And respect them.
Mm-hmm.
Respect them because they have views, they have their beliefs that you gave them at home. They have been challenged from the outside.
Mm-hmm.
And if they cannot talk to you about it, about the challenges that they have, how can you help them? They have to find their own way. And like you said, they will find help outside.
Mm-hmm.
So each home, parents should be a place where we can come back anytime in our lives to it's our source. We come back here because we know we are in peace. We can talk about things. We can understand, and we know that somebody's going to listen. And maybe we are wrong in our thinking as a kid, but mom and dad will. Oh yes, yeah, I didn't think of that. So it's very, very important that the home should be the place, a safe place.
Home should be a safe place, a place for shelter, a place for a loving eye and a listening ear, and not for an intimidating tongue or finger that's pointing at you, blaming you. Thank you very much again for your very, very fruitful discussion, for your great advice. It was great to have you. And our dear viewers, thank you very much for having us during the past hour. Don't forget, we'll be meeting again next week at the same time, 7 Eastern. All the best until we meet again, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're taking Pape and Danforth's busy scenes. We can sail the lake and stroll the beach's boardwalk, or bike the Don Valley's beautiful ravines. We'll go shopping